former senator from Missouri, Jim Talent. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Well, I'm doing fine, Morgan. I'm a little bit ticked off by the
I,
administration's
I heard about
Islamophobia.
this.
And yeah, I mean, it takes a
We
lot to get
we
me
sub
angry these days, but this did.
yeah. Well, we subjected our audience in the very beginning of the 6 a.m. hour having to listen to the vice president's announcement of this new Islamophobia initiative, whatever that means. What are your thoughts on that, sir?
We About 3 weeks ago, we had the biggest massacre of Jews since the Holocaust, which was intended to and did yank the cap off of Jew hatred around the world, anti-Semitism around the world. And we're seeing now huge crowds of it on college campuses, in cities, in France, in Britain, in the United States. And the administration's response here is to say, oh, we've got to worry about Islamophobia. Clearly, they're intimidated by this outbreak of anti-Semitism, which is only going to encourage it. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm concerned we're going to be entering an era of pogroms again against the Jews, something I never thought I'd see in my lifetime. Now, I understand the politics behind it. I'm a politician. I always get the political calculus, but there's
hmm
sometimes you just have to take some political risk. This was the wrong thing and done absolutely at the wrong time.
I couldn't agree with you more, sir. And I would tell you, as a Jewish American myself, whenever the administration, whenever they do condemn anti Semitism, whether it's in a speech or whether it's in a statement, it can't just be condemning anti Semitism outright. There's always got to be qualifiers. You always have to bring in other groups. And I don't know for any other ethnic group in the United States where that has to happen. Anti-Semitism in and of itself is not enough for this administration. You can't just condemn it. You also have to say, well, let's add Islamophobia, let's add all these other things. When is it going to be enough? How many Jews have to be killed in order for that just to be enough for this administration to
Yeah,
condemn?
exactly. And it's not it's consequential, the harm it does, because it tends to normalize the anti-Semitism, or at minimum, it shows weakness in response to it, which only encourages more of it. So this is a time. Look, the administration has done some good things. I think the placement of the aircraft carriers. I think they're warning Iran off escalating the war, which is very good. The president has issued some good statements, but this was the wrong thing to do, and I don't think they understand how dangerous this is. Not just in terms of, and that's bad enough, the possibility of a regional war, of horizontal escalation of this war to other fronts, but also in the countries around the world, what this is unleashing. And I'm very
Yeah.
concerned about it. It was the wrong thing for them to do.
Well, and I think you just touched upon the possible escalation to a regional war. I think all of the actions that this administration are taking will actually lead us to that regional war, and that's what concerns me, Senator, because I think it's this. They never learned the lesson of their failures in Russia, in
Right.
Ukraine. They didn't learn why they failed to deter. And in every article that you read, for example, they will say, well, we would do X, but we're afraid, we're afraid that it's going to antagonize Putin. And the same thing with Hamas. They are constantly afraid of quote unquote escalating. And in fact, it's that timidity, it's that their inability to use American power and American might. They're afraid of American power. And in my mind, that is what will actually lead to a bigger war instead of stopping a bigger war.
Exactly. A resolute policy based on real power deters war. Nikki Haley said that this morning, and she's absolutely right. And in particular, and this dates back to the Obama administration, the administration's belief that you can construct a stable security arrangement in the Middle East based on a partnership with Iran is nothing short of lunacy. Iran has to be
Right.
constrained and deterred the way the Trump administration did, and you have to be consistent about it. They have to believe that when they attack the United States or our allies, our soldiers, that there will be costs and consequences, and they will regret doing it. And we have not responded aggressively. Their proxies are attacking our people in the Middle East, and that raises the risk that Iran will push the chips in the middle of the table and unleash Hezbollah. We'll know more, I hope,
Mm.
after Nasrallah gives his speech tomorrow about what Hezbollah
Right.
will do. But Morgan, The initiative's in the hands of the aggressors. We're waiting to see what they do. And that's because of
That's
this
totally
weak
right.
policy.
At what point, Senator, do you think that the Biden team just sort of admits failure with their Iran policy? Like, I'm just curious how many more Americans have to die at the hands of Iran's proxies for them to admit, maybe this hasn't worked for the past 3 years.
Well, I'm not hoping for it, and I'm not expecting it, because it would have been very simple for them when they came back into power to simply not take this policy up again. After all, the Trump administration stopped it. They could have just quietly not done it anymore, and they've been trying to resurrect it ever since.
It makes absolutely no sense. We are lucky, very lucky, to have former Missouri Senator Jim Talent with us this morning. Thank you, sir.